Thank you. Yep. Hello. So, I'm Tom Pittenger. Work at Kraus Hamdani Aerospace. We got a few people here at the conference: John Challenger, Stefan Kraus, and Sam Tabor. The talk I wanted to talk about was a bit more about ArduPilot as a success story and things we've done and contributed as individuals, as a company, and just like how a company would interact with ArduPilot. What it's empowered us to do is we make this aircraft that's a glider, a powered glider that's is also VTOL as an option to do like radio relay and high altitude, long range things. And it's really given us the ability to push the technology in ways that make us really competitive in the industry. We have the longest endurance for a Group 2 drone, which is the K1000 ULE, which is ultra long endurance. And obviously cube powered. Here's an example of soaring. So soaring's a big thing that we kind of did on the ArduPilot. We've done 12 hours just doing soaring with no motor, essentially flying around. So it's the capabilities out there for doing some pretty amazing things. We have a record for the longest electric air flight aircraft for a Group 2 aircraft, and 76 hours. And a lot of that's limited by airspace, so just the time of the flight. But once you start repeating, then you can kind of fly forever. But yeah, so this is our longest flight so far. But we could easily extend that. The key thing here is how ArduPilot has enabled us to be successful in the industry. So we have our records, soaring, which gives batteries sort of battery optional sort of thing. So we'll extend. Because of a flight like we had, motor failures sort of become a fun thing to play with rather than a catastrophe. And we've had propulsion failures so far away that we're able to sail back and soar up a little bit. But we've had motor failures way out in the past, so it's amazing. We've kind of pushed a lot of networking stuff because we're kind of a radio relay in the sky with all the IP networks and whatnot. So having IP backbone on the aircraft, that's adding IP native technology into the autopilot gives us better connectivity and whatnot. Flexibility on landing, that's been really nice, where we can land on a very small runway. Has anyone ever landed on a push stamp size runway? In-flight reverse thrust. Our aircraft glides so well that we actually have a problem coming down sometimes. So a long time ago, I added a reverse thrust for some other things, and now it's like it's not for landing; it's also for flying. So sometimes I got to do reverse thrust just to come down. So it's interesting that different aircraft can be configured for different kind of capabilities. So it's amazing how flexible ArduPilot is in that regard. We've had on a regular basis, we're flying very, very long range for all this radio relay type thing. So we do beyond visual line of sight. That's just part of our business model for our customers. So very, very long range. We've been engaged with a lot of different vendors and manufacturers to bring more of ArduPilot technologies and associate, DroneCan and Mavlink to just bring the community and the ecosystem better. So it gives us a better compatibility with gimbals or whatever, the sensors. But it just kind of empowers the whole industry, the UAS industry. So, and giving back to part of that into ArduPilot, that's kind of even though it's our competitors, a lot of hardware vendors are always worried about, if I contribute back, then someone else will undercut us doing the same thing. But if everyone kind of does it together, it's one big ecosystem. It's really great. We have tons of contributions from our employees. I have several people that contribute. Stefan Kraus has been kind of financing a lot of this. He's been a big proponent for open source in general. So it's been real great that he's been able to kind of support us on all this. And also, we have perfected VTOL ship landing. And we've also the first one to do it. So, big claim. So, sometimes when you're doing your simulations and you mess up your models, it kind of becomes a I'll skip ahead a little bit but yeah, it's you're we did it. Yeah, and there's some serious yaw authority on those things too. So you spin those land it right there, spin that puppy around. So we did it for the first. Yeah. 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 Yeah, we are looking for partners. If anyone wants to expand on that, so just yeah. Speaking of partners, we've been working a lot with ArduPilot. We've been in their booth at AUVSI and just worked closely with them over the years, helping to bring things like the CubeRed, via network stuff. We're really kind of pushing that, so helping them test that and make it right for the high end user. And then what's next for us, and how does ArduPilot kind of benefit? How we get it back, and we're looking at the longest record for a flight in general. Just the longest flight is 64 or something days. So we're looking at trying to do a 65-day flight, and that's it's fun to just kind of burn circles in the air. But maybe we'll do a fly around the world type of thing to do it. So it's kind of big things. So we've simulated some of these things, and it's just nice that it's kind of proving out that ArduPilot is capable of such a thing, right? So it's kind of amazing that this thing is just so capable. So contributions that we've kind of added to ArduPilot, lots of fixed wing stuff. I can go through these, but it's kind of listed there. But lots of networking things, and improvement to solar panels in general. Aircraft are solar powered, solar electric. Well, a lot of these are kind of like not your normal hobbyist sort of cheap drone features. Like for example, ADS-B. That's nice. A lot of people think of ADS-B as an in, but when you actually go into larger controlled airspace, it's all about not just ADS-B out, but like the big boy transponders that are actually on the aircraft. So dealing with things like that and being in a coordinated air traffic control sort of situation and seeing how ArduPilot can interact with that is a good triumph. I'm going to note here improved WSL2 support. I've worked on that a little bit, but big thanks to Sid. I've been working on it a little bit, but he gets all the credit there for WSL, for his Visual Studio plugin. Definitely, if you guys aren't doing that, that's great. You get debugging support and everything on it now, so plug in him on that. So lots of stuff that we, as time allows, we want to kind of push back into ArduPilot. We've been going like crazy, adding features and bringing up capabilities. So these are kind of things on the horizon that I'll be making pull requests, or we will be making pull requests to kind of push back. So lots of fixed wing, just improvements in general, and motor testing. We made a new flight surface called the Breakervator. So it's kind of a weird one, but having your elevators act as brakes just induce drag a little bit. Having man your CAN talk to multiple ports, and the things that you need when you start kind of bringing your vehicle up to a scale where you have to have customers that don't know anything about your aircraft, that they have to start using it, and you make tools that can kind of configure your aircraft, param management, and we have tons of peripherals on it. I think we have like 5 peripherals that are on board now, with many more in the works. But AP periph, I've been doing. I keep saying me, but we're doing lots of work on AP periph, adding capabilities to that. The library set that's in ArduPilot is just so extensive. That's one of the most valuable things in it is just all the drivers that are in there. So being able to take advantage of of it through AP periph and having payload managers, or I have like we made a pitot tube heater, so that's not a problem that most people come in contact with. But you don't want to just turn your heater on and just have it on all the time. That's the normal thing to have. Have a nice thermostat sort of system. It's like a little mini computer, but it's just a periph, right? Networking, improved network support, doing more things with networking, making it easier for connectivity, not and relays. So you can say, toggle GPIO and have a duration to it. Take the load off of your GCS systems. And more about manufacturability, where we get PCBs and whatnot. We make almost everything in-house for that stuff. And we have to test them all and put them through the paces before they even touch an aircraft, let alone test fly that. So I've added a lot of things to AutoPilot and periph to do things like serial loopback and all these and stuff like that. That's in the AutoPilot that you can kind of put it in test mode, and it'll test itself and kind of pop out messages, say, "Oh, everything's all good," and check the IMUs and whatnot, and kind of just do a big course. Yeah. So lots of stuff. There's actually it just goes on and on. We actually have a lot. It didn't fit on this page, so I kind of squeezed it all in there. But yeah, we've been kind of focused on making features and less pushing back. So I want to make sure I kind of allocate some time and start getting all this stuff in there. Also want to talk about how a company how they interface with ArduPilot, and the problems and things that as a community that we should kind of think about how we can improve that experience for some other vendor, whether a partner or not, but just anyone who uses ArduPilot and they want to interact with it, what we can do. So this is a very controversial thing, but merge versus rebase. I know everyone loves rebase, and some people love merge, and so there's that. But the major downside is your hashes disappear when you rebase. So if you have logs and you did a flight test and then you did something and we're like, oh, we need to change that, that's a pull request or whatever, then you rebase it, all those logs, you've kind of lost your hash unless you just start keeping tons of branches, and that becomes annoying. So there's huge benefits to merges. So that's handy as far as paper trail to know what you've done, because a lot of times when your aircraft gets big and expensive and logistics become huge for that, every single flight becomes valuable, and that you need to reference back to it or something in time. I might want to look back 5 years and say, this flight was done on this code, how did it perform or whatever. Misinformation is big, where I still, this was mentioned on the earlier slide, but people think we run 8-bit Arduino, and that's us. And so it's just, it's because our name, right? Arduino, ArduPilot. So that's just something that it's hard to, our ArduPilot's marketing department could use piles of cash to help our outreach on that regard. And same thing with and this is just, so some of these problems, I shouldn't say are specific to ArduPilot, but just projects in general too, right? But open source means low quality. That's what all the closed source folks like to advertise. So it's kind of an ongoing battle in general. Learning curve for ArduPilot. It's one of those things where the best thing about ArduPilot is it's got like 2,000 parameters, and the worst thing about ArduPilot is it's got 2,000 parameters. So people don't know what they don't know about it. So the learning curve is steep, and usually a lot steeper than they think. But there's so much documentation out there, and just manuals and experience from people and YouTube videos, that people kind of get enough to get by. But really, people usually just have the minimum, and they fly on flyable wire, and that's it. And I think that's what ArduPilot's for. And no one would dare use auto or even auto land. Like, it drives me nuts that people don't do auto land. I'm like, just try it. People don't even try it, right? So yeah, get companies or whatnot and users. We should do a better effort somehow to kind of get everyone up to speed and make that kind of easier for them somehow. And when I say here, what does ArduPilot even do? It's one of those. It would be impossible for us to make a list of like this is what we can do. Doesn't matter what we do on that. We're missing things, right? Like we ask stuff all the time, but just like there's no way to itemize our features. It's just they're so large, so it's so extensive. People ask, right? They say this ArduPilot. Look, it's like, well, here's these 10,000 things it does, right? So it's just it's hard to Again, it's one of those our image/marketing, whatever we'll call it, but it's outreach of some sort. And that's from a company when they say this ArduPilot was this ArduPilot, this is one. It's like, why is yours better? What can yours do that this one doesn't? And it's like, well, you kind of like dance around saying we can do this and this, but if there was some sort of bullet points or something, I don't know. There's no real answers to all these. This is just kind of like problems in general that would be nice that we could improve. Consulting, I say consulting here, but really kind of what I mean is like more experts that are available for work. Like a lot of times companies want to use it, but then they may not want to use it just because they have they know that they'll have some problem. And it's like, well, we just want to pay $20,000 to make this problem go away. And it's like, that's not as easy to do in ArduPilot versus some other projects. We kind of need, or I should say in open source in general. It'd be nice if we just get more people involved, more developers, and get their experience up so they're more competent to just get more people into it, The upstreaming PR process is a bit daunting, and from a company's perspective, it sometimes becomes hard to. I shouldn't say hard to, but it becomes a cost risk analysis essentially of like they put effort into it, and it's like, oh, you want more effort? Oh, you want more effort? You want more effort? So that at some point they're just like, why am I bothering? Right? So it's good as a project that we should make sure that we. Not just try to make that as easy as possible, but somehow figure out a way to just encourage that. Because when we don't, it becomes all the core developers that have to deal with all that, right? So it's in our best interest to try to get try to make the whole experience better somehow. I don't have any good answers for that, but it's definitely a barrier of entry for other companies that are paying employees to get their PR in. Because we'll almost always say, okay, that's nice, but can you change this one thing? And oh, by the way, does it work on master? They don't fly on master, right? Companies are always on the latest release, and then it's like, oh, well, if it's going to merge, it has to go on master. So, are you expecting them to suddenly put their code on master to fly it? So you have these barriers that a lot of us don't realize that you can't do that when you have a plane that's worth $1 million or whatever. So and each flight is very risky. It's like you have to just treat the whole situation a little differently. So again, there's no good answer for it, but that's just a kind of a barrier of entry for bigger companies to try and making these products to get into. And then managing a fork. So when you have your own fork, you're usually based on some release, and then you are. The assumption is we started here, and sure, someday it'd be nice to go to the next version, but there's so much work to get there. We should really work on trying to make that an easier experience. And merge versus rebase is kind of one tool that could be used for that. But one of our best and worst things is our upstream. The main master branch just it hauls ass, right? It's always like thousands and thousands. You're going to the next release, you're like what 10,000 commits behind or something. So it's like the concept of rebasing or whatnot is daunting. But we want to make sure we try to get that working improve that experience somehow. Because all these companies make code, and they usually are, very, very important and very useful improvements. And so to them, it's just, if it's zero effort, sure, we don't care. But if there's any effort, not worth it. And so if anyone sees more than zero effort, or more than trivial effort, then it just becomes, I'm not going to bother. So just trying to work on that. And private repo in general, I've actually made a few commits to kind of improve this experience in general. But to some companies, it's just a necessary evil. They just won't or can't or something. So they have ArduPilot in their own little repo. And that's not necessarily the big problem, but when you do when you do that, suddenly you're with GitHub CI, and our CI on open source is totally unlimited use. It's free. But on a company, you start burning thousands of dollars on that. Tim, you have a question?
Not so much a question.
Your mic's not on. The longest question ever.
Yes, and just to start again, not so much a question, but that's a great list of comments on some of the challenges with working with ArduPilot. And to me, there seems to be mostly a common theme there, and it's a thing that I've seen too. Configuration management, fundamentally. And there's a couple of others that I'd throw in there as well related to it. One is managing what firmware you've got on a board. For example, sure, you can tell which hash it is, but which custom firmware build options were in that particular firmware that is on this particular board. Another one that relates to it is managing when you're on a particular vehicle, Lua scripts. When you're dealing with Lua scripts, which versions of which Lua scripts that go with which firmware that's on the board. Software configuration management, and we use GitHub, is, been around for donkey's years, etc. But it's I keep struggling with an idea that I want to be able to have, like, here's a standard configuration for my vehicle. Click a button, make sure the right firmware with the right build options, with the right Lua scripts, with the right sets of parameters, because actually parameters should be able to be configuration managed as well with check-ins and checkouts, instead of the download and upload thing that we do right now, which is all manual with all of the errors and omissions and things that can happen with that. And just sort of generally speaking, I'm sort of agreeing with you in the sense that I think that that's a thing that we all need to think about. This needs to be able to be managed, and it's going to get even more important than just, hey, that's a niggly thing. We're seeing, for example, in our new regulations coming in Canada, that there's a requirement to be able to say, demonstrate and document what are your software configuration management, hardware and software configuration management processes around how you're actually managing your vehicles. So, a really, really, really important comment that you've made there around that. Thanks.
Yeah, so parameter management and hash management, I guess. That too. It's almost like we need a hash for the features or the configuration of it, and then a hash for just the commit you're on, right? Because when you compile, you can set all these defines and it doesn't change your hash. It gets trickier when you start doing things like embedding Lua scripts, or even if on SD cards or whatnot. Because it's hard to tell what version of Lua you had when you flew, because then that changes your behavior, and you can blame the C code or whatever. But it's like, well, really, Lua was doing some crazy thing, and it's like, well, can't tell by the log. So yeah.
Your Lua scripts, your params.
So what?
Your Lua scripts and params to be locked down in your build as you'll compile them in for sure. So it's really a development problem that Tim's talking about there.
What was the problem? The manufacturability thing you said?
Yeah, I know. I could hear myself, but apparently no one else could hear me. I was just saying what Tim was saying before, that those things should be baked in when you're releasing your production firmware, in that you're baking in your Lua scripts into ROMFS, you're baking your param defaults into your hardware dev. So all of those things for a production vehicle are managed with the firmware release. So it's a really only production problem that I think Tim was talking, a development management problem that I think Tim was getting to.
Like baking in your defaults and whatnot. Yeah, and those may or may not be known in your hash. So look at hash.
With the extension as well, to be able to set all that stuff and just bake it in.
So that's it. Yeah, we had our still ship there, but that's it. Anything else? You know,
Thank you for joining us for the ArduPilot Developers Conference 2025. With thanks to our sponsors, 3DXR, Aerosystems West, CUAV, QPilot, High-Tech, Polybro, IR-Lock, KH Unmanned, Kraus Hamdani Aerospace, Maytech, Modal AI, Northwest Blue, SD Model, and Theseus. Organised by KH Unmanned. Hosted by 3DXR in North Yorkshire. Broadcast by Q Branch.